Let's start with a scenario that I think, I think everyone has experienced at least once.
Oh, absolutely.
You're in a foreign country, you are standing in line at a cafe, and you have rehearsed your order in your head like 1,000 times.
Just running it on a loop.
Exactly. One coffee, please. One coffee, please. But then you get to the front of the line, the barista looks at you with those expectant eyes, and your brain just flatlines.
It just completely empties out.
You panic, you mumble something weird, and you end up walking away with, a warm glass of milk and a side of shame.
Oh, I have definitely been there. It's the classic ordering anxiety. It's that moment where the rubber really meets the road. I mean, you can study grammar charts for years, but asking a stranger for a beverage, that is the final boss battle of language learning.
It really is, and that's exactly why I wanted to unpack the source material we have for our deep dive today. We're looking at a script from the DSY channel.
Right.
Specifically, it's their day 1 video lesson. It's part of this beginner English challenge, and the story is titled The Coffee Shop.
And for anyone out there thinking, wait, a beginner English lesson, is that too basic for a deep dive? Just hold that thought. Because what we're looking at here isn't just a basic vocabulary list.
No, not at all.
We're looking at a very specific pedagogical architecture. We are analyzing how this script is designed to basically hack the brain's fear response.
Which is, that's a pretty bold claim for a video about a guy ordering coffee.
It is, but I think the source really backs it up.
Okay, let's get into it then. The source introduces us to 2 characters, Angela and Jack. They're the hosts of this challenge.
Yeah.
And right off the bat, the dynamic is, it's very distinct.
Very distinct. You have Angela, who is the anchor. She's the steady hand, the teacher figure. She opens the video, welcomes everyone, sets the stage. She basically represents safety.
Right. And then you have Jack.
And then there is Jack.
Jack is a lot. In the intro, he says, we speak slowly, or we tell funny stories, and we practice together. But he's just vibrating with energy. He's the chaos element.
He really is. And structurally, that is so crucial. If you just had Angela reading sentences, it'd just be a lecture.
Yeah, it'd be boring.
Exactly. But Jack brings the narrative. He brings the mistakes. In learning theory, we talk a lot about the affective filter.
The affective filter. Can you break that down for us?
Sure. That's a concept from the linguist Stephen Krashen. Basically, if you are anxious or bored or stressed, your brain puts up a wall, a filter. The input might be there, but it doesn't actually get in. You can hear the words, but you don't acquire them.
So if I'm terrified of making a mistake, I literally cannot learn.
Precisely. Anxiety blocks acquisition. So when you have a character like Jack, who is goofy, makes mistakes, and is clearly having a bad day in a really funny way, he lowers that filter. You're laughing at him, so you stop judging yourself.
Okay, I get it. So Jack is the sacrificial lamb here. He looks foolish, so we, the learners, don't have to.
Exactly.
Well, he certainly leans into that role in this script. Let's talk about the incident.
Yes, the coffee incident.
The whole lesson is built around this story. Jack tells Angela about his morning at the coffee shop. Angela notices he's looking a little too energetic.
Right. She actually comments on his energy level. And Jack explains he decided to try something new at the cafe. Now, normally, in a traditional textbook, this dialogue would be so incredibly dry, I would like a coffee. Here is your coffee. Thank you.
Which is how robot humans interact, but not real people in the real world.
Correct. But Jack's story goes off the rails immediately. He starts off well enough. He walks up and says, hello, I would like a large coffee, please.
Safe, standard.
But then the upsell happens. The barista asks, do you want milk? Jack says, yes, please. Then she asks, do you want sugar?
And here's where this day 1 lesson takes a hard left turn into comedy. Jack doesn't just say yes, he says, yes, a lot of sugar.
And in the retelling, he admits to Angela that he thinks the barista put 10 spoons of sugar in the cup.
10 spoons? That's not coffee, that's just syrup at that point.
It's basically a biological weapon.
But wait, it gets worse. Or better, I guess, depending on how you look at it. He doesn't stop at the sugar. He asks for toppings. He asks for chocolate. And then ice cream. Ice cream, yes. He turns his morning brew into a fully loaded sundae.
Angela actually calls him out in the script. She laughs and says, Jack, that is not a coffee. That is a dessert.
And this is where the visual storytelling comes in, which is so smart. The source text describes the drink as looking like a mountain. Jack says the cup was huge.
And the payoff is that Jack is now so hyped up on sugar and caffeine that he tells Angela he ran all the way home.
It creates such a vivid mental image.
And that's the second key to why this method works so well. We remember stories way better than lists. If I gave you a list of words, coffee, sugar, huge, run, you might remember them.
Maybe for a day.
Right. But if I tell you the story of Jack's Sugar Mountain and him sprinting home with crazy eyes, you will definitely remember it.
Because it's sticky, it's emotionally resonant, even if the emotion is just pure amusement.
Exactly. It provides context. The word huge isn't just a dry definition anymore. It's the physical size of that ridiculous cup.
But I want to push back on this a little bit. Just to play devil's advocate, we are talking about a day one lesson here. Absolute beginners. Is throwing a weird, chaotic story at them really efficient? Wouldn't it be faster to just drill the basics? I am, you are, he is.
That is the traditional grammar translation method. And honestly, it fails for most people.
Why is that?
Because it's boring and it completely lacks context. By starting with a story, even a really silly one, you're doing what linguists call comprehensible input.
Okay.
The learner understands the message. They know Jack ordered a crazy drink, even if they don't know every single grammar rule yet. They are absorbing the patterns naturally.
So you hook them with the drama and you sneak the vegetables in while they're basically eating the dessert.
That is a great analogy. And speaking of vegetables, let's look at the actual nutrition of this lesson. Because after the story, they transition to part 2, vocabulary and sentences. They pivot from the narrative right into the mechanics.
And they choose one specific focus phrase to anchor the whole thing. The phrase is, I would like.
I would like.
Now, to be honest, when I read this, I thought, isn't that kind of difficult? Would is a modal verb. It's conditional. Why not just teach them, I want coffee? It's just 2 words.
That's a very common question, actually. I want is grammatically simpler, yes, but pragmatically, it's socially risky.
Risky? How so?
In English, directness can sound quite rude. If you walk into a shop and say, I want coffee, you sound like a toddler or a dictator.
I want coffee. Give it to me now.
Exactly. It creates friction. Softens it. It smooths out the whole social interaction.
Yeah.
But the reason they teach it on day one isn't because they expect the learner to understand the subjunctive mood or the conditional tense.
Then how do they expect them to learn it?
They learn it as a chunk.
A chunk.
Yes, this is known as the lexical approach. You don't teach the grammar of I plus would plus like. You teach I would like as if it's one long word, a single block of sound that simply means polite request.
That's fascinating. So the brain just files it away as a tool rather than a math equation to solve.
Correct. The learner doesn't need to know why it works yet. They just need to know that this sound, I would like, gets them a coffee without insulting the barista.
It's like learning to drive a car. You don't need to know how the fuel injection works. You just need to know that pushing the pedal on the right makes the car go forward.
Precisely. It's functional language.
Right.
And the source actually points out the irony here, which I really love.
Oh, the contrast we were talking about earlier.
Yes. Jack uses this incredibly polite, sophisticated grammatical structure, I would like, to order the most absurd, childish drink imaginable. I would like 10 spoons of sugar and ice cream.
It's like wearing a tuxedo to a mud fight.
That is the perfect image. And that contrast actually reinforces the memory. You remember the polite phrase precisely because it was used to order a literal sugar mountain.
Let's look at the other vocabulary they highlight in this section. They focus on sugar and huge. Again, very simple words.
But notice the definitions. The source script doesn't give a standard dictionary definition.
Yeah, for sugar, Angela just says, sugar makes things sweet, and then immediately says, Jack likes too much sugar.
She ties the definition directly back to the character. Sugar equals sweet equals Jack's hyperactivity.
And for huge, Jack says, very, very big. My coffee cup was huge.
And we are right back to the visual of the mountain. This is crucial for listeners to understand about the learning process. You don't learn words in isolation. You learn them in a web of associations. If I say huge and you immediately picture Jack's ridiculous cup, you have learned the word. If you just memorize huge equals big, that connection is weak. It's going to snap under pressure.
So the story creates the hooks to hang the vocabulary on.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have the story, which is the hook. We have the chunking, which is the grammar hack. And we have the visual associations. But then we get to part 3, audience interaction. And this is where the rubber really meets the road for the learner.
This is the active practice component. And honestly, this is the part most people completely skip when they're learning on their own.
The source gets very bossy here, actually. Angela says, please grab a pen and some paper. And Jack says, speak out loud. Don't be shy.
Speak out loud is probably the single most important instruction in the entire script.
Really? Why? I mean, if I'm listening in my car on the way to work, isn't that enough?
No. It really is not. Listening is passive. Speaking is active. It uses entirely different parts of the brain. You have to physically move your mouth muscles to form the new sounds. It's the difference between watching someone do a push-up and actually getting down and doing one yourself.
You definitely cannot get ripped just by watching gym videos.
Sadly, no. And in the script, they use a very specific technique to force this interaction. Did you catch the note in parentheses?
Yes, I did. It says, pause for 5 seconds for audience to repeat.
That silence, that 5-second pause, that is where the magic happens.
5 seconds feels like a really long time when you're watching a video.
It feels like an eternity. And that is exactly why it works. It creates a vacuum. If there's no pause, the learner just nods along. Yeah, I get it. I know that word.
Yeah.
But when the audio cuts out and there is just dead air.
It gets awkward. You feel the physical pressure to fill that silence.
Exactly. It forces the learner to step into the gap. It is an open invitation to perform.
It's a psychological trigger. The silence practically demands a response from you.
And it gives the learner the actual processing time they need. This is something cognitive scientists call retrieval practice. The learner has to reach into their brain, find the phrase I would like, and physically push it out of their mouth. That struggle, that actual effort, that is where the neural connection gets cemented.
So if you are just listening passively, you aren't actually building that pathway.
You're building a recognition pathway, maybe, but definitely not a production pathway. You might understand it perfectly when you hear it, but you won't be able to say it when that barista is staring at you waiting for your order.
The first drill sentence they use is the core phrase. I would like a large coffee, please.
Right. Repetition of the key takeaway.
And the second one connects right back to the fun of the story. The coffee is huge.
I love that they chose that specific sentence. It's a notive sentence. You can't really whisper. The coffee is huge. You have to put some emphasis on it. Huge. It forces natural intonation.
And then right after that 5-second pause, Angela comes back in. She says, excellent. You sound amazing.
Positive reinforcement right on cue.
But she can't even hear them. She doesn't know if they sounded amazing. They might have sounded like a dying seal for all she knows.
It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. We talked about the affective filter earlier, that anxiety wall. This praise is the hammer that breaks that wall right down.
So it's entirely about building confidence, not about perfect accuracy.
At this beginner stage, 100%. If a learner tries to speak and immediately worries, oh, is my accent perfect? They will just stop trying. But if the friendly voice in their ear says, you sound amazing, they get a little dopamine hit. They feel good. They're much more willing to try again next time.
Jack even adds to that. He says, English is easy when we have fun.
That seems to be the guiding philosophy of the whole DFY channel, and it's scientifically sound. The brain prioritizes retaining information that is associated with positive emotion. If you are laughing, you are learning.
So let's zoom out a bit here. We have looked at the story, the chunking, the active recall. What does this mean for our listeners? I mean, most people listening to this deep dive are probably already fairly fluent in English. Why should they care about Jack's massive sugar problem?
Because I think the principles we're talking about here apply to learning absolutely anything.
And how so? Like outside of languages?
Think about it. If you were trying to learn a completely new skill, let's say coding or cooking or even public speaking, don't start with the dry, boring textbook rules. Don't start with the complicated syntax. Start with the story. Find the context.
Find your Jack, basically.
Exactly. Find the playful, low-stakes entry point. If you're learning to code, don't just sit there reading dense documentation. Build a silly button on a website that makes a fart noise when you click it.
Just completely lower the stakes.
Lower the stakes. Lower your affective filter. Make the process ridiculous so you aren't so terrified to break things.
And use chunking?
Yes, absolutely. Don't try to understand every underlying theory from day one. Learn the functional blocks that get you a tangible result. I would like gets you a cup of coffee. Print hello world gets you text on a computer screen. Master the functional chunks first, and you can understand the deep grammar later.
And finally, don't just watch. Do the push-ups.
Respect the 5-second pause. Whenever you are learning something new, you have to create space for yourself to struggle and actually produce something. Passive consumption is simply not learning.
That is such a powerful takeaway. We consume so much content these days. Videos, articles, deep dives like this one. But how often do we actually pause and try to say it out loud, metaphorically speaking?
Very rarely. And that is exactly why we often feel like we know way more than we can actually do in practice.
Well, the source script ends with a teaser for their next lesson. Angela says, tomorrow, Jack gets lost in the city. You don't want to miss it.
Poor Jack. He cannot catch a break.
First, he's vibrating from a massive sugar overdose. And now he's wandering the streets, completely lost.
But he is the hero we need. He makes all the mistakes so the learners can figure out the vocabulary for directions and map and help. It's the classic hero's journey, just with significantly more caffeine and way less competence.
I feel like we should be rooting for him, but honestly, I'm mostly just worried about his cardiovascular health at this point.
He will be fine. He has Angela there to guide him.
True. Angela is the unsung hero of this whole operation. Just keeping the train on the tracks.
The steady anchor in the raging storm of sugar.
So, before we wrap up today, I want to leave you, our listeners, with a challenge. Not necessarily to go out and order a coffee in a foreign language, although definitely do that if you have the chance, but rather to look at how you are learning new things in your own life.
Are you making it entirely too serious?
Exactly. Are you trying to learn I want because you think it's more efficient, or are you willing to learn I would like because it's actually effective in the real world? And are you giving yourself permission to be a little bit foolish, like Jack?
Giving yourself permission to order the mountain.
To order the mountain. Speaking of which, that vivid image of the mountain of coffee has really stuck with me.
It's highly evocative.
It really is. And it got me thinking. We laughed at Jack's order. The 10 spoons of sugar, the chocolate, the ice cream. It was objectively an absurd thing to ask a barista for.
A giant dessert, masquerading as a morning beverage.
But let's be totally honest for a second. If there were absolutely no consequences, no judgment from the barista, no health issues, no cavities, and you could order a mountain of coffee just like Jack, what crazy toppings would you ask for?
Oh, wow. That is a dangerous question. You are opening Pandora's box here.
Come on, picture it. You're at the counter. You use the polite phrase, I would like. What comes next?
Okay, let me think. If we are going full Jack on this, I think I would have to go with whipped cream. But not a normal, reasonable amount. I'm talking a structural amount of whipped cream.
Structural? What does that even mean?
Like, I want an architectural spire of whipped cream towering over the cup.
Yeah.
And then maybe some crushed honeycomb sprinkled all over it.
Ooh, honeycomb. That is classy. A very sophisticated sugar rush.
I do try. What about you?
I think I'd go for texture over everything else. I'd want the coffee, the ice cream, obviously, but then I'd want an entire glazed donut just right on top, impaled perfectly on the straw.
Highly efficient. You've got dinner and a drink all in one hand.
Exactly. And maybe some brightly colored sprinkles, just to let everyone in the cafe know that I'm not taking myself too seriously today.
I think Angela would strongly disapprove, but Jack would be incredibly proud of you.
Jack would definitely be proud. Well, thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into the world of the DFY channel and the hidden mechanics of language learning.
It was a pleasure as always.
We hope you feel a little more confident to embrace the chunks, to respect the pause, and maybe even order a ridiculous mountain of your own.
Just remember to run all the way home afterwards to burn it off.
Good advice. See you all next time.
Bye.